Global TV and radio, a place where dreams take flight, with authentic storytelling, diverse perspectives and meaningful conversations, where global stories unite and bridges are built beyond all borders. Discover world-class education, entertainment, hope and inspiration. Together, we're building bridges worldwide. Subscribe to our channel, USA Global TV. Download our app, USA Global TV. Be our guest or join our team. Visit usaglobaltv.com. Thanks to our founder and executive producer, Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck. Music score by Yeffy Tang from Cloud Road Music. Voiceover artist Mike Porter. Creative direction by Paul Garcia. USA Global TV and Radio, your home for global connection. All rights reserved. This video and its contents are the exclusive property of USA Global TV and Radio. Unauthorized use, duplication or redistribution in any form is strictly prohibited.
Hello and welcome to USA Global TV and Radio. I'm Tracy Cram Perkins, and our show today is Dementia Home Care. I invite you to subscribe to our YouTube channel, USA Global TV and Radio. I am a 4-time dementia caregiving survivor and the author of Dementia Home Care, How to Prepare Before, During, and After. And I am so excited to share with you today that after nearly 4 years, the audio version of Dementia Home Care is now available wherever audiobooks are sold. And I can't wait to share with you a few clips that were narrated by the wonderful Erin Grassi. So let's get to it.
You cannot teach a man anything, only help him to find it within himself. Galileo. When my husband and I started the caregiving journey with my family, we had no idea what we were doing. The saying, "You don't know what you don't know until you know it," comes to mind. Like many before us, we staggered blindly through the dark maze of caregiving, searching for answers, including to my father's question, "I have Alzheimer's, not the plague. What will it take to be treated like a human being?" Which led us here, to the end of this book. We've covered a lot of material. Use what works for you. Don't try to do everything. Pick a chapter and work through it. Make mistakes. Forgive yourself and try again. Dementia will wipe the slate clean for you, sometimes in 10 minutes. Your loved one won't remember the mistakes, only the feelings. Dementia caregiving is hard. Make time to take care of yourself. Make time to breathe deeply. Make time to slow down and enjoy the small moments. Remember the importance of touch and expressing your love, and you're receiving it in return. Share with your family and friends how to visit and help. Accept the help that is offered to you. Allow yourself to have fun.
And there you have it. Now I have one more clip that is very poignant for today because I want to talk about a few things that have to do with end-of-life planning, have to do with urinary tract infections, have to do with fatigue. And so let's just listen to this next segment here, shall we?
You won't remember everything. Even if you have an elephantine memory, some little details will slip through. You might not remember every one of your loved one's surgeries, like when your mom had her funny bone surgically removed in 1999 after you drove her new car into the mailbox waving at the cute boy next door. It was so last century. Over the course of her care, there will be a lot of medical documents you need to keep track of. It doesn't have to be fancy, just a file box and some manila file folders to label. Give each file a specific name. For example, medications, or perhaps prescriptions. Medicare documents, supplemental insurance, hospital bills, doctors, documents for doctor's appointments, legal documents, and any other additional files you may need. You will be surprised how much time it can save you not having to dig through piles trying to find what you need at the last minute. You can also keep an e-file on a thumb drive for backup. It may not seem important now, but if she is seeing multiple doctors, being able to pull together all the pieces of paper may prevent other doctors from prescribing medications with an unintended side effect. Keeping track of all of her doctors, where they are located, upcoming appointments or surgeries, can also be overwhelming.
So that was a clip from Chapter 8, Doctors, Pharmacists, and Me, Oh My. And that's leading off to what we're heading into next. So, first of all, I want to talk about the difference between a healthy brain and an Alzheimer's disease brain. And what you're seeing on the left is a healthy aged brain, age 55 and above. And on the right is a moderate Alzheimer's disease brain. You'll notice that it has holes and that it is shrinking. And because of this, the memories that were in those spaces where the holes are now no longer exist. As a result of that, when we try to bring them back to us and remind them that they just ate 5 minutes ago, or that they repeated the same thing 7 times, or that they had done something already, or we've already come back from an event, they have no recollection because they no longer have their short term memory. So, within those holes in the brain, there is memories outside of those holes. Now, the way our brain works, it's been hardwired since birth that we take the information that we learn. Let's say it was tying our shoelaces, we learned in kindergarten, and then by the time we were in second grade, our brain pulled forward all that information so we could tie more complex knots. That doesn't go away. So when you ask someone, don't you remember you just ate? They really don't. Or if they answer strangely and you don't understand why, it's because it's taking them longer to process because their brain's having to search for the information. It's not where it used to be. And so they might answer your question 5 or 10 minutes later, and it seems so out of the blue you don't understand where it came from or what they're talking about. So these are some of the things that we have to look at. So let's look at some other items here. Let's look about how to recognize if somebody might be suffering from dementia or Alzheimer's disease. These are the early warning signs. So, if they have a loss of memory that disrupts their daily life, like they can't find their keys, they can't find their wallet, they're losing things and they can't find them, challenges in problem solving and planning. This shows itself in not being able to keep doctor's appointments, missing family outings, losing track of time, and also difficulty completing familiar tasks. So if it's something that you do every day at home, like making breakfast, and suddenly you can't remember what do you eat for breakfast, that might be an issue. Confusion with time and space. This happens quite frequently when you're not sure where or when you are, and you might see someone that's talking about they think it's 2025. Well, I mean, when you think it's 2025, and they think it's only 2007. Also, trouble with visual images and spatial relationships. This becomes very apparent if you're looking at like old family photos and there's more than three people in an image and they can't differentiate what the picture is, if they're having trouble identifying what's in the picture. New problems with words and in finding words and speaking shows itself when somebody's having a conversation and they pause longer and longer searching for the word they're trying to use, or they substitute a word, as in one time when I was driving with my dad in the car, he asked me, when is the jet landing? He was trying to ask me when were we coming home. So it was figuring out what he was trying to tell me. Also, misplacing things and losing the ability to retrace them. What usually happens is somebody will hide something because they're worried that they will can't find it later, or and so then they can't remember the next day where they hid it. It's so well hidden that no one in the family can find it. Then when they show decreased or poor judgment, such as they're not driving safely and they're driving too slow or too fast for the situation, is an example. Also, withdrawal from work and social activities because it becomes too overwhelming for them to be able to function. And then changes in mood or personality. If you had somebody that was rather abrupt and they suddenly become welcoming and say everything is wonderful, beautiful, and lovely, that might be a sign that something has changed. Keeping that in mind, let's look at something else here. 3 things that can cause meltdowns for your loved ones who have dementia. So the first thing is reality orientation. If you remember, we just looked at the brain. It had holes in it. It's shrinking. They can't remember. So when we try to bring them back saying, don't you know I just answered that question? Or why can't you remember? Or we just did that. Or I keep telling you. You cannot bring them back to you no matter how painful it is. They don't have the capacity anymore. It will make them melt down. They might become defensive. They might cry. They might argue with you. You have to be their place of safety. You have to help guide them through to what they've forgotten, even if you have to find tools to help them remember. All right. The next thing is rushing. Rushing someone can cause catastrophic meltdowns. I had an experience with my father where we were trying to go to a doctor's appointment. During the lunch, we were watching news, and they had talked about an anniversary for the ricin attacks. And so they also talked about sarin gas, which had happened before that. And so we had all of those things happen through, and I didn't think anything about it. We were getting ready to go to the doctor's appointment. It's winter. I grab my dad's favorite coat, hand it to him, and he slaps it out of my hand and tells me it's full of poisonous gas. Okay, so now what do I do? He's hyperventilating now. He's freaking out we're going to die. And I had to figure out how to get us out the door because we only had 20 minutes baked in. So I told my dad to hold his breath, to slide past the coat and get to the closet door. And I was going to get some protective gear so that we could get it taken care of. I ran into the bathroom, grabbed some cleaning gloves. Fortunately, he was so panicked he couldn't relate to the fact that that would protect us from the gas. And I picked it up. I said, hold your breath and open the door. We threw the coat in the door and we slammed the door shut. Well, by this time, he's pale, he's hyperventilating. And so I mimicked him at first. And I started hyperventilating too. We started slowing down our breathing. I thanked him for saving us because the hallucination was very real to him. And he needed to know that I believed him and that I was participating. And so what we ended up doing is I thanked him. I let him know how much I appreciated. And in between each sentence, I slowed my breathing down. I took a deep breath in and let my breath back out. It took about 5 minutes, and we were only 5 minutes late to the appointment. But you never know when these things are going to happen. Now, the next thing to think about is dehydration. This is a real big one when you're doing dementia care. We as caregivers sometimes become so exhausted. Uh, we don't want to take them to the bathroom constantly. And so we're relying on adult continence products and we're restricting fluid. Well, unfortunately, the way the body is designed, it is going to keep releasing fluid whether we're giving it to them or not. So they become more and more dehydrated. And so what ends up happening is their urine becomes concentrated, but not only that, they can have delirium. They can also get a urinary tract infection. So it's important that we keep them hydrated, but we also have to understand how continence products works. So let's look at a few things here. We also want to look at when dementia might not be dementia, but it might be something else. So if your loved one is on a new medication, if they have a urinary tract infection or other infection, or if it's fatigue. So let's look at a little bit further into this. First of all, what happens when you have drug interactions? If somebody's taking a new medication within a couple days, you'll notice a change in behavior that wasn't there previously. So it comes on suddenly. So if that happens, then you need to contact your loved one's pharmacist and have them prepare a drug interaction report for you. You will then take that to the doctor because what it will give is alternative medications or it'll remove medications if applicable. Once you get that in your hot little hand and you take it to the doctor, uh, what that'll do is they can then modify the prescriptions and follow the advice of the pharmacist so that your loved one will no longer have that issue and it will clear up. All right, moving on. What to watch for urinary tract infections? The following symptoms. When it's first starting, it's an urge to pee that cannot be delayed. Okay. Also, burning sensation or pain as the infection progresses. Very little urine because they've stopped drinking, they don't want to pee. Urine tinged with blood. Again, we're going in the progression of bad to worse here now. Complaints about soreness in their backs, their sides, their lower abdomen, and worst of all, signs of nausea, vomiting, chills means the infection has gone too far. They have a fever and you need to seek immediate medical treatment. All right. Continuing on that same vein, let's talk about the continence products. With a healthy human bladder for somebody that's age 50 or younger, it can hold up to 2 cups of fluids or 16 ounces. When somebody reaches the age of 70, their capacity has diminished and they can only hold a cup and a quarter of fluid. So they're going to need to go to the bathroom more frequently. People over the age of 60 generally need to pee at least twice during the night. So let's think about this. If you are caring for a loved one and you're having to get up several times to take them to the bathroom or they're urinating in their bed, having a continence product and getting up every 2 hours to change it is not easy for you to sleep. You have to wake them up, you're awake, you're not getting the rest you need. So when we're in this situation, often the first thing we think is, okay, we'll buy the next size up, it will hold more. Well, unfortunately, that's not true. It will only hold 16 ounces. It doesn't matter what size it is, so buying the next size up will not work. So, what do? We have to worry about now if we do that, fall risk increases because if you buy the wrong size, you can have product leakage and they can slip and fall in their own urine. You can also have a problem with the material being too bulky. If it's too large for them and it starts sliding down and binding their legs, they can stumble and fall and possibly break a bone. Also, it increases the risk for skin irritation and infections. And we definitely don't want to have an irritation or infection happen. It can lead to a lot of other serious complications. Now, let's look at some products. First, most people use the classic Silhouette Depends Silhouette Classics. I'm having dyslexia here today. And it holds 16 fluid ounces, which means we have to change it every 2 hours. During the daytime, that's not an issue because if we're toileting, we can get them to the toilet. If we're not toileting, then we just have to change it. Now, if we do nighttime defense, that holds up to 30 ounces. So that means that you can probably sleep for a few hours and have fewer changes because you only need to change it every 2 to 4 hours. Now, if you use a product that's breathable, similar to like say Senni's Super Quattro briefs, they can hold up to 86 fluid ounces. That's for someone that's bedridden. They have other products that hold up to 64 fluid ounces for somebody that just wants a nighttime product. Anyway, what this means is you're not waking your loved one up. They get more sleep, you get more sleep, and it reduces the amount of time when they might start inverting their day to night. So, just things to think about. Now, if they have released fecal material, you need to change the products immediately. They cannot absorb feces. So make sure that you do change those the minute you smell that an accident has happened. Now, last thing, preventing UTIs, drinking enough water. This is so huge to make sure that somebody is well hydrated. You Someone with dementia, if they are dehydrated, can become delirious. You'll notice because they weren't delirious before, but now they're showing signs of delirium. If it's been slowly building and they are having hallucinations, that's a different story. But with delirium, you can also get infection. So you want to make sure that you definitely have somebody well hydrated. You can stop giving them fluids after dinner. Restricting fluids after dinner is okay to help slow down the amount of release they're going to have overnight, but make sure they get adequate fluids during the day, which is 8 cups of water that are 8 ounces. All right, changing continence products every 2 hours is hugely important. Also, Using a breathable continence product. Now, they're more expensive, but they're much cheaper than having medical bills. And what breathable products do is they prevent skin irritation, they prevent infections, and they also tend to be a higher quality and hold more fluid, so you don't need to change them as often, with the only exception being is if someone releases feces. All right? So, now let's talk about fatigue. Signs of fatigue. Persistent tiredness and exhaustion. We've all felt that. Any one of us has been caregiving. But do you know that that also happens with our loved one as they progress? The more we ask them to do, the more fatigued they become. All right. Muscle weakness and muscle aches. Difficulties concentrating or focusing. Can't tolerate much physical activity because they're so tired. They just don't have the energy to do it. Reports of insomnia or snoring because now it's interrupting their own sleep. Headaches can be involved, lightheadedness or dizziness, slow thinking beyond normal, difficulties making decisions because you're so tired you can't think, irritability or mood swings. You're going to see this when you start snapping at people for the simplest things, like somebody just knocking over a glass of water or somebody dropping something, say an egg, and it breaks. Simple things that are just normally you would clean up. So let's talk about this a little more. What are the differences between fatigue, where you actually need to get help, or when it might be becoming dementia? With fatigue, there's no issues with spatial relationships. The muscle aches may be due to overuse, overdoing things, especially as we age. Mental fog that does not significantly worsen over time. If it worsens over time, that's definitely a sign that you might need help with dementia. Also, they can still perform everyday activities like cooking and paying bills. If you can still do those things, it is fatigue, and you need to make sure that you work in time for self care and respite. And as much as it sounds crazy when you're going, I don't have time, consider this. Caregivers that do not take the time to take care of themselves are more likely to pass before their loved one. So please figure out how to take some downtime. And even if it's just going out and taking a 5-minute walk, anything you can do to get yourself a little away time, a little downtime, something for yourself. We can't be on all the time. All right. Now, here's something a lot of people have been asking me about lately, and I wanted to address overcoming the communication gap and earning the trust and cooperation when you're trying to have a conversation with your senior loved one about future planning. This is a really big issue. A lot of people get very frustrated, and we're not necessarily looking at it from the senior's perspective. So let's take a little walk down here and see what's going on. This is how future planning usually happens. It usually happens, and this is one of my readers shared this, um, when they end up hospitalized. And so what happened for her is she was reading the book, read the part about what if I die first, after she was hospitalized for 10 days with pulmonary embolisms. So she was in the hospital. Her husband, who had dementia, was home by himself for 10 days. And so when she got home, she had to figure out how to get all this done and make it happen so that nobody else in her family would have to go through this with them. All right, so let's look at what we can do. So our goals for helping them with end of life planning are contingency starter plans, because what we want to do is we want to start these one thing at a time, make it easy to work into. So contingency starter plan, what that is, and I should back this up. A contingency starter plan is when you have somebody temporarily ill or hospitalized, but not for very long. And what it includes is a list of folks that are friends and neighbors who can help out for a short time. So maybe they are going to be able to drive you someplace, or they can check in on you and check in on your loved one if they're okay staying by themselves for a short time. Or perhaps it's a paid caregiver that can step in and help you. Now, with one-time emergencies, that particular thing is you need to now have a guide for anyone doing care when you are unable to return home. So let's say you're going to be gone for a few days. So what it's going to include is your loved one's daily routine list, everything they do from getting up, getting dressed, how to de-escalate when they get upset, what their favorite foods are, so that somebody can just walk in, read the list, and go, okay, I can do this. Also, you want to have a medication list and a list of the doctors, not only for EMTs in the event of an emergency, but also if you have to take them to an appointment so that you have everything all in one place. Now, I also recommend a copy for I've jumped ahead again, a copy of their meltdown trigger list. So this is for also when you have a continuing crisis, when a caregiver is going to need surgery, has a heart attack, broken bone, whatever it is. Um, the meltdown trigger list, and it's available on my website if you don't have my book, under the resources page under useful forms. It's got a guide showing you how to do this. You identify what causes a meltdown and you write down the items that can help them de-escalate it. So how to redirect them, how to distract them. Maybe it's giving them their favorite stuffed toy. Maybe it's moving them to another room to listen to music. Maybe it's just giving them a treat or wrapping them in a blanket. Whatever that is, you write that down at the bottom of the list. What you also want to do is include any actions by caregivers that can cause a meltdown because the caregiver isn't going to know what can trigger that. And they might be going along, everything's wonderful, and then all of a sudden your loved one starts screaming, standing in the corner, raising their fist, going, "Get away from me!" So you want to make sure that doesn't happen because they aren't going to know what to do. All right. Now, in the event you die first, this is very important. Okay, what you want to do is make sure that you include all of your legal documents, such as durable power of attorneys, wills, letters of instructions, any advance directives, and information needed for the estate executor. Because if you do pass before the person you're caring for and somebody needs to step in and take care of them, they need to have that information. Otherwise, it's going to take a lot longer for them to get things sorted out. And it becomes very stressful because they don't know what you need them to do without you telling them that it's available. All right. So, all of this information, if you have my book, is covered in Chapter 7. Now, let's go on and talk about one other free tool. AARP has a wonderful Prepare to Care guide that has all of these for free. You can download it. It walks you through step by step all the things that you need to help your loved one. So it's another tool available online. And now consider this, How to Say It for Seniors. This is a wonderful book. I have my own copy here. I don't know if you can see me in the corner here. This is the original cover. The cover is when they rebranded the series of How to Say It. But this is a wonderful, wonderful tool if you want to read more after we get done talking about this. So I want you to keep in mind every senior caregiver is experiencing staggering new losses every single day. They're losing their strength because of loss of muscle mass and exhaustion. Their health is deteriorating. Their peers are passing away and they don't have time to make new friends, and the amount of time it would take to bring somebody on that they to the equivalent of somebody they've been friends with for 30 years is not going to happen. They no longer count in society. They no longer have any authority. And here's the other thing about when somebody is aging. Think about how we're going with our lives right now. Everything is forward progress. We are moving forward. Every 10 years we have new things. We start out, we graduate from high school, we maybe go to college, we get a new job, we have our career, we get married, we start having kids. Everything is forward moving. We finally get to do those things that we always wanted to do as an empty nester. And then we hit a certain age, and now instead of the forward progression, we are regressing. Usually around between the ages of 60 and 65, they start wondering about their legacy. How will they be remembered? These are very important to people in this stage of life. So let's talk about this. We want to do things that will help them maintain their control in end of life planning. And it works best if we assist them while not creating a false sense of urgency. It's not on our time frame. Because think about this. We're always going, hurry, hurry, hurry. We haven't taken care of this yet. We need to take care of this yet. So let's look at this from their perspective. Our typical conversation goes, Mom, have you given any more thought to how you want to do your end of life planning? Your loved one, the conversation trails off. They avoid the question. They never decide. Well, why is that? Understand what it's like from their perspective. Their lack of urgency could be you are taking their control away from them. It's perceived as your agenda and not theirs. Now think about this. They feel badgered. Or from their lived perspective, life always has a way of working out. They have so many caregiving duties on their plate, they don't have the mental space or energy to deal with it in that moment. So, what can we do? Listen, or thy tongue will keep thee deaf. This was a very eye opening phrase when I first read it, and I want to tell you it had a lot of impact on my caregiving. Learning how to talk to your elders. What is important to them? What's important to them is us understanding the value of their nonlinear conversations. It may not be dementia. It could be that they are expressing their values in the details. So consider this. When you think about these times when you've like sat around at family dinners at the holidays and Uncle Bob is relating a story about how he used to work on the farm and how he would be out, picking the beans and then they would be milking the cows and how they and all of these things were going around in circles and finally you're getting frustrated and you start ending you tell them the rest of the story for them. Okay, you've just cut them off. You told them you're not listening. What you don't understand was they were probably expressing their value in work, their value in and pride in what they did and how they got to where they are. So it's understanding where they're coming from when they tell these stories. So how are we going to do that? What is important to them? First of all, is allowing them to maintain a sense of control over the conversation and not interrupting them and finishing the sentences for them. Also, asking the right questions from their perspective. Ask open-ended questions like, what are your thoughts on this? How about clarifying questions like, when you're saying this, are you referring to this? What are you talking about? Also, probing questions like, why do you think this happened? This is a very important question. Summarizing questions let them know that you are understanding what they're saying and you're connecting with them. So you're saying, if I'm understanding you correctly, you're saying this. Also, reflective questions. It sounds like you're feeling frustrated. So that again, you are actively listening and you are making them feel heard. What this does is it makes you feel welcoming. You also want to make sure that you are welcoming in your body language. If you're sitting there talking to them or they're talking to you and you're looking around, you're trying to get them to speed up, you're tapping your foot, you keep looking at your text messages, what are you telling them? They have no value. You're taking away their authority. So, what we want to do is we want to be welcoming. We want to be actively listening to those repeated patterns in their stories, to be the detective and figure out what are they trying to tell you. Because once you understand that, they're going to trust you more and they're going to be more accepting to your guidance. Expressing empathy towards their needs of control and legacy and not urgency. The urgency is on our part trying to help them get this done before anything happens. We feel the clock ticking. They are looking retrospectively and know things that always work out in the end, whatever the end is. Understanding their needs will build that trust and they will then allow you to guide them through end of life planning. But you have to earn it. So you have to earn it. Now consider this. Let's say you say, I get the sense you're overwhelmed by the idea of end of life planning, and I'd like to hear your ideas in case you fall and end up in the hospital. What makes it difficult for you to list anyone who can provide substitute care while they heal? Or list anyone who could provide transportation for them or their loved ones? Let them answer those questions. Then if they ask your advice, then you can offer suggestions. Also, if your loved one takes an extended pause after any question, this is not dementia. You might be witnessing a life in review moment. This is very important to them. Allow them the time to reflect. Because if you wait to speak until after they speak, you might be surprised that the answer is not what you thought it was. All right. So, if your loved one is over the age of 60 and they thank you for your help and you truly want to connect with them, be welcoming and use the magic words, "You're welcome." Consider this. Most people that were in the silent generation and many baby boomers and even Gen Xers growing up were growing up in a more communal society. Because of that, they were spending time with neighbors, friends. They weren't as separated as we are now. And so being welcoming and saying you're welcome speaks to their heart and it builds trust. That's what we all want. All right. Now, I really enjoy sharing with people the books that from other authors that I find really impressive. So I want to just take a moment and talk about these. First of all, I want to talk about Surviving Alzheimer's with Paula Spencer Scott. And by the way, I own every single one of these books. And this one is a really fabulous book. It takes you from diagnosis to beyond death, or to death, I should say. She walks you through every single thing. She cared for 5 family members. She talks the talk, she walks the walk, she asks really important questions for your consideration and then guides you through to those answers. It's a really phenomenal book. All right. The next thing is Learning to Speak Alzheimer's by Joanne K. Nicosti. This is a really great book, especially if you're trying to make your home more dementia friendly. It walks you through her method called habilitation, and you get to look at it through the eyes of someone with dementia. It's a really phenomenal book. The 36-Hour Day, I have owned copies since the 5th edition. It is a phenomenal book. It is so chock full of answers. That's why it's a continual bestseller. That's why it's considered the Bible of dementia care. The 7th edition, I'm going to be honest, I have a small problem with it is if I'm too tired to read, I can only read it in the morning because it's written like a textbook now. It's got it in columns. So for whatever reason and I've heard other people say this as well, it just makes them a little more tired reading it, makes it a little harder to comprehend. Now, How to Say It for Seniors. Fabulous book. It was originally written for seniors caring for their aging parents. It still speaks their language. So, of baby boomers, it speaks the language of Gen Xers. So, if you have someone you're caring for in those categories, I would strongly recommend reading it. It gives you thought and perspective you didn't have before, and it teaches you conversational skills that you can use in everyday life. Now, The Caregiver's Guide to Dementia by Gail Wetherill is a phenomenal book. It has all sorts of exercises for respite, for meditations. It also talks about how to deal with things that are difficult to handle, especially when you're giving caregiving, how to handle people when they're melting down, when they're sundowning. It's just a wonderful book. Creating Moments of Joy Along the Alzheimer's Journey by Jolene Brackey. That saved my bacon. It was such a wonderful book. I took from start to finish. I couldn't get enough of it. Also, Share the Care is a wonderful book for group caregiving, for creating group caregiving, because you can't do it alone. And it's if you do create a group of caregivers together, once your loved one passes, then they have a support group. You have a support group for the rest of your life. The last one is Creative Care by Ann Bastings. Her grandmother had a stroke, and when at the end of her life, she could only talk by going tss, 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 and using one finger. And Ann figured out how to create a communication devices with her, and she's training other people how to communicate using these devices. It's a really phenomenal product. She also has a training for folks that are home caregivers like myself, so that's for free that you can learn how to do these techniques and empower yourself as a caregiver. So, now we're coming on to the end here. And I would like to say thank you very much for joining me today. And I want to let you know that we'll be back on June 15th. And our next guest will be Laurette Clyer, author and publisher of Nana's Books. Nana's Books are a series of advertisement free, dementia friendly books that stitches anew the vibrant patches of a person's life story through a collage of nostalgic art and literature and bring back the pleasure of reading. In the meantime, you can go over to our YouTube channel at USA Global TV and Radio and find our playlist where you'll find all of our past episodes. I want to thank the wonderful Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck for all of her work behind the scenes today, and thank you to our sponsors for making this possible. See you next time, everyone.
USA Global TV and Radio proudly presents Tracy Cram Perkins, a dementia caregiving survivor teaching how to balance care with peace of mind. #1 resource for dementia caregivers. It's the book Dementia Home Care: How to Prepare Before, During, and After. Over 17,000 copies sold of this must-have guide. And now a testimonial from Tracy Smith.
If I was to describe this book to someone who is going through a similar situation, I would underscore how important it is to have some sort of a tool or a guidebook to help you through certain stages. And there's so many, it's such an unknown topic to the average person. And to have this as a reference is essential. It's going to help you get through it personally, as well as help your loved one manage.
To learn more, go to TracyCramPerkins.com. Tracy Cram Perkins is an award-winning author. She's also the host of Dementia Home Care television show. Watch it here on USA Global TV and Radio.
Thank you, viewers and listeners of USA Global TV and Radio, for joining us today. We're honoured to have your time and attention as part of our global community. At USA Global TV and Radio, we believe in the power of authentic conversations, meaningful connections, and creating a world of possibilities together. Want to be part of something bigger? Join our team of elevated listeners at usaglobaltv.com, a space where your voice matters and your ability to listen transforms relationships. Stay connected with us across all our platforms for thought-provoking discussions, expert insights, and empowering stories. Subscribe to our channels at youtube.com/c/USA Global TV. Follow us on social media and explore the endless opportunities we're creating for growth, learning, and inspiration. Together, we're not just broadcasting. We're building bridges and changing lives, one conversation at a time. For inquiries, contact us at info@usaglobaltv.com. Music by Johnny Dyes. Produced by Executive Producer and Director Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck. Voiceover by Mike Porter. Creative Direction by Paul Garcia. All rights reserved. Copyright 2025. Visit usaglobaltv.com to view our full terms and conditions.